Oh, Canada, our home and native land, true patriot love, in all thy sons command. With glowing hearts we see thee rise, the true north, strong and free. From far and wide, oh Canada, we stand on guard for thee. God, keep our land glorious and free. Oh Canada, we stand on guard for thee. Oh Canada, we stand on guard for thee. Oh Canada, where pines and maples grow, great prairies spread, and lordly rivers flow. How dear to us thy broad domain, from east to western sea. The land of hope for all who toil, thou true north, strong and free. God, keep our land glorious and free. Oh Canada, we stand on guard for thee. Oh Canada, we stand on guard for thee. Oh Canada, beneath thy shining skies, may stalwart sons and gentle maidens rise, to keep thee steadfast through the years, from east to western sea. Our own beloved native land, our true north, strong and free. God, keep our land glorious and free. Oh Canada, we stand on guard for thee. Oh Canada, we stand on guard for thee. Ruler supreme, who hearest humble prayer, hold our dominion within thy loving care. Help us to find, O God, in thee a lasting rich reward, as waiting for the better day we ever stand on guard. God, keep our land glorious and free. Oh Canada, we stand on guard for thee. Oh Canada, we stand on guard for thee. Thank you for your participation, everyone. Thank you so much. Although I sense this country is still in great distress, I have a great love for this nation, and I think you do too. And I also have feelings of hopefulness. And that's one of the reasons ceremonies like today are so incredibly important. Because when we recognize where we've been and we acknowledge what we've been through, it gives us guidance with regards to where we're going. And so one of the presenters we're going to hear from today is David. He's a veteran. He has served in the Canadian Armed Forces, and he has a message for you. Please welcome veteran David. Veteran David Mason.
All right. Testing. Perfect. Okay, so yeah, I'm David Mason. I served with Patricia's Canadian Light Infantry and the Royal Canadian Navy. So, lest we forget, we hear it all the time this time of year, but what does it mean? Of course, we all know it means to remember those who served this nation, but few understand that it is actually a warning. Our veterans who served and fought for our country earned all the rights and freedoms we take for granted today. So why the warning? I believe that these heroic men and women endured hell on earth, so we may enjoy a little piece of heaven, earned and paid for with the blood, sweat, and tears of patriots. The warning is a reminder that all we have can and will be taken from us if we forget those who paid for it. Lest we forget is not a statement of sentimentality to help give closure to loved ones or comfort those who lost so much in Canada's many conflicts. It is a statement to all who hear it that we should never get complacent. We should never take our glorious and free nation for granted, and we should never forget the cost that was paid to give this country to us. Our Canadian men and women have a history of courage, bravery, and fearlessness. Our military has proven itself time and time again, not in Hollywood, not in the media where they are portrayed with less than stellar headlines, but in the only place that truly matters, and that is the battlefield. Canada's military has a legendary heritage, and I would like to take this time to highlight this legendary status with a brief overview of just a few members of our historical military. To start, I want to talk about Sergeant Tommy Prince, my personal hero. He was born October 25th, 1915 in Scanterbury, Manitoba. He was born to a proud lineage of Indigenous chiefs, so he had a lot to live up to. He bravely volunteered for service at the start of World War II and was finally accepted on June 3rd, 1940. Originally trained as a sapper with the Royal Canadian Engineers, he volunteered for duty with the 2nd Canadian Parachute Battalion, which was actually recruiting secretly for the newly formed 1st Special Service Force. In fact, all of our special forces today can trace their lineage back to the 1st Special Service Force. Later dubbed the Devil's Brigade, they were tasked with some of the most arduous missions. The Devil's Brigade was sent to Italy in 1943, where among other assignments, they took, and I hope I pronounce this properly, Monte Majo and Monte La Defensa, a pair of twin peaks that were critical to the German defensive. Monte Majo was the Canadian contingent's assignment, and Tommy Prince was given the task of leading patrol up its slopes. Partway up, he left them behind and single-handedly approached and dispatched the German gunners in complete silence. This led to the successful taking of Monte Majo. Later, moved to Anzio on February 8, 1944, near Latoria, Prince was sent to report the location of several German assembly points. With 1,400 meters of telephone wire, he reported on the German positions from an abandoned farmhouse. When the line was cut, he geniusly dressed in old farmer's clothes and pretended to weed the crops. He shook his fist in the air at both the Allies and the Germans while searching for the cut portion of the telephone wire. When he found it, he pretended to tie his shoes and fixed it. Then he returned to the farmhouse and continued his task of reporting the German positions. He was known to sneak past German security guards at night, enter enemy sleeping quarters, leaving messages, stealing equipment, and even dispatching enemy soldiers, all while being silent as a ghost. During the Korean War, he was a member of 2 PPCLI. He was present during the legendary Battle of Kapyong, where a mere 700 infantrymen were opposed by a Chinese division of 20,000 soldiers. With all their support forces abandoning them, they were left to fend for themselves. Lieutenant Colonel Stone ordered his men to fight with the words, "No retreat, no surrender." Here, they would successfully repel the overwhelming force of Chinese soldiers. 2 VP would receive the Presidential Unit Citation for this epic and heroic feat. Sergeant Tommy Prince received the Military Medal, the Silver Star, 6 service medals for his service in World War II, plus the Korean Medal and the UN Korean Medal. Posthumously, he was awarded the Canadian Volunteer Service Medal for Korea in 1991. Today, we remember him. William Billy Avery Bishop, Canadian flying ace of World War I with 72 kills, making him the top flying ace of both Canada and the British Empire in the war. Born February 8, 1894 in Owen Sound, Ontario, he originally served with the 7th Canadian Mounted Rifles, where he was placed in charge of the regimental machine guns. He was known to never miss a target. They arrived in Plymouth Harbor on June 23, 1915. After seeing an airplane land in a nearby field, he commented, "You don't get any mud or horseshit on you up there. If you died, it would be a clean death." On September 1st, he reported to 21 Training Squadron for air instruction. On March 17, 1917, he arrived at 60 Squadron, where he flew the Newport 17. Average life expectancy of a new pilot at this time was a mere 11 days. Billy Bishop, though, scored his first victory when he downed a German scout on March 25, 1917. By March 31, 1917, he scored his second victory. By April 8, he scored his 5th victory, officially making him a flying ace. He claimed a total of 12 aircraft in April alone, winning the Military Cross for his participation in the Battle of Vimy Ridge. On June 2, 1917, he claimed 3 aircraft, taking off, and destroyed several more on the ground while flying solo behind enemy lines. For this action, he was awarded the Victoria Cross, the highest, most prestigious award of the British honor system. Billy Bishop helped to form the reputation of Canadian airmen as men to be admired by our allies and feared by our enemies. Today, we remember him. Sergeant Robert Spall, born March 5th, 1890. Standing a mere 5'7", which I take personally because I'm only 5'8", so good for him, and working as a customs broker, he decided to serve in the Canadian Expeditionary Force with the PPCLI in July 1915. On August 13, 1918 in France, his platoon became isolated. An overwhelming force of Germans were advancing on their position, and it seemed all hope was lost. Sergeant Spall made the ultimate sacrifice when he climbed from the safety of the trench to face the enemy head on. As the German army advanced, Spall began to mow them down with his Lewis machine gun. Their advance was briefly halted. When his weapon ran out of ammunition, he instructed his platoon to escape through a sap trench. Sergeant Spall proceeded to pick up another Lewis gun and continued his attack on the German army. His heroic and courageous actions stalled the enemy long enough for his comrades to escape. Unfortunately, Sergeant Spall was not so lucky. He was eventually overwhelmed by the advancing force, and his final resting place remains a mystery to this day. He was posthumously awarded the Victoria Cross for these actions, which can still be viewed at the PPCLI Museum at the Military Museums in Calgary. Sergeant Spall and many others earned for Canada a reputation of bravery and courage that is unmatched around the world. Today, we remember him.
Ladies and gentlemen, at this time, you will hear the trumpets, and then we will stand for 2 minutes of silence. Then there will be more music after that. So we ask you to stand in silence as we remember.
So I'll just continue here. So today we remember Robert's fall. These are but only 3 examples of the many, many heroes of our Canadian military. Together, they earned the love of Canadians, respect of our allies, and the fear of our enemies. And today, we remember them. I would like to conclude with a reading of my favorite poem, The Final Inspection by Sergeant Joshua Helterbrand. The soldier stood and faced God, which must always come to pass. He hoped his shoes were shining just as brightly as his brass. Step forward now, you soldier. How shall I deal with you? Have you always turned the other cheek? To my church have you been true? The soldier squared his shoulders and said, No, Lord, I guess I ain't. Because those of us who carry guns can't always be a saint. I've had to work most Sundays, and at times my talk was tough. And sometimes I've been violent, because the world is awfully rough. But I never took a penny that wasn't mine to keep, though I worked a lot of overtime when the bills just got too steep. And I never passed a cry for help, though at times I shook with fear. And sometimes, God forgive me, I've wept unmanly tears. I know I don't deserve a place among the people here. They never wanted me around except to calm their fears. If you've a place for me here, Lord, it needn't be so grand. I never expected or had too much, but if you don't, I'll understand. There was silence all around the throne where the saints had often trod, as the soldier waited quietly for the judgment of his God. Step forward now, you soldier. You've borne your burdens well. Walk peacefully on heaven's streets. You've done your time in hell. Thank you.
Thank you, David. We now call on Joy to come up. Joy is also a veteran, and she'll be sharing a poem with us.
In Flanders fields, the poppies blow between the crosses, row on row, that mark our place, and in the sky, the lark still bravely singing fly, scarce heard amid the gulls below. We are the dead, short days ago. We lived, felt dawn, saw sunset glow, loved and were loved, and now we lie in Flanders fields. Take up our quarrel with the foe, to you from failing hands we throw. The torch be yours to hold it high. If we break faith with us who die, we shall not sleep, though poppies grow in Flanders fields.
We very much appreciate the veterans who could come today and are willing to serve as part of the program. And in a few minutes, we'll hear from veteran David Mason, again with a different message. With regards to the poem in Flanders Fields, it's written from the perspective of the dead, speaking to the living with a message that you have to carry on our torch. You have to pick up where we failed. And a few years after that poem was released, there was another poem composed in reply to In Flanders Field. This one is called We Shall Keep the Faith. Oh, you who sleep in Flanders fields, Sleep sweet to rise anew. We caught the torch you threw, and holding high, we keep the faith with all who died. We cherish too the poppy red that grows on fields where valor led. It seems to signal to the skies that blood of heroes never dies, but lends a luster to the red of the flower that blooms above the dead in Flanders fields. And now the torch and poppy red we wear in honor of our dead. Fear not that ye have died for naught. We'll teach the lesson that ye wrought in Flanders fields. When I look at that poem, it gives me a sense of responsibility. Our soldiers fought and died for us. Some were physically injured. Some suffered and struggled with mental health issues. They sacrificed for us. And we have lived somewhat of a blessed life, thanks to those who have gone before. But with that being said, the fight is not yet done. We can rest no more. The fight goes on, and now each of us, each and every one of us, has a part to play, including those who've signed up with the Canadian Armed Forces and the RCMP and other organizations. But each and every one of us, with our other affiliations, we have a part to play too. We have a responsibility as well. The responsibility is not on the shoulders of others. It's on us. How many of you accept that responsibility? Thank you. We have another message now from David Mason. A bit of an update about the Canadian Armed Forces and more. Please welcome him back.
So this one's going to be a little more personal. So I joined the Army in 2009, and I spent 6 years with the 3rd Battalion PPC, and then 4 years with the Royal Canadian Navy. I deployed to Kabul, Afghanistan with 3 VP from 2011 to 2012 on op attention, Rota 0. Although I deployed only once to Afghanistan, my tour was extended to a total of 8.5 months, and thus I earned both my General Campaign Star and my bar. When leaving the Army in 2015, I said to my company that no matter what else I accomplish in my life, nothing will equal the pride I feel from being counted among them. Once a Patricia, always a Patricia. In the Navy, I served as a naval electronic sensor operator. Although I was no longer an infanteer, the desire to shoot shit and blow shit up was just too tempting to turn down. And also the idea of spec pay was pretty enticing. In the year 2020, that infamous year when everything changed around the world, I deployed with HMCS Winnipeg on op projection and op neon, earning another 2 medals. We nicknamed it the jail sail, because although we sailed to Hawaii, Japan, and Guam, we were never allowed to leave the ship. The sail lasted for 4.5 months. I was trained as an LSRO operator and worked as an early warning for our ship of any incoming aircraft or ships. As NESOPs, we gave the ship situational awareness of the surrounding seas and skies. On deployment, they were gracious enough to train me for a future role as a ship's 57mm gunner and sea whiz operator. Artillerymen and tank crews can attest to the feeling of power one feels while in control of such powerful weaponry. I absolutely loved my occupation and the crew of HMCS Winnipeg. I always wore my uniform with pride and took my role as an Armed Forces member seriously. I wore that uniform for a total of 10 years, and by all accounts, I wore it honorably. In fact, you could say I always dreamt of wearing one. As a preteen, I put away my hockey skates and decided to join the Royal Canadian Air Cadets. I decided at a young age to never take our country for granted and always partook in Remembrance Day ceremonies so I could show my respect for those who came before me. From the age of 12 onward, I wore that poppy from November 1st to November 11th religiously. I never missed an opportunity to show my respect and gratitude to our veterans. That's 26 years from when I was 12 to the present day. I've been to or a part of a Remembrance Day service ever since, except once. I remember having the honor of being a cenotaph guard for one service while still serving with the PPCLI, but I don't remember which year or what town we were in. I remember the sound of the trumpet playing the last post, but I can't remember who played it. I remember the poem in Flanders Fields, but please don't ask me to recite it because I can't remember how it goes, and we literally just heard it and I still can't remember. I've been to many Remembrance Day services, but there is only one Remembrance Day that I will never forget. The year 2021, November 11th at 11:11 a.m. I know exactly where I was and what I was doing. For the first time in 25 years, I was not on parade, shoulder to shoulder with my peers. For the first time in 25 years, I was not in the audience as our brothers and sisters in arms paid their respect for those who made the ultimate sacrifice for our country. For the first time in a very long time, I was not invited out for drinks at the local Legion. No. In the year 2021, on November 11th at 11:11, for the first time in 25 years, I sat alone. In my bedroom, not wanting my wife or children to see me in that state, I sat alone. As the clock struck 11:11, I felt the tears fill my eyes. I covered my face in shame. Know I was alone? 1 second, sorry. Okay. The Royal Canadian Legion, who has trademarked the poppy we all wear, decided that it did not matter how many years you've served or how many sacrifices you made for your country. You were not welcome without proof you partook in a medical treatment. So I sat alone. But I didn't just sit there and cry. I also prayed. Not just for me, but also for the hundreds, if not thousands of other veterans who found themselves in the same situation. I prayed that I and all those like me would be given the love, the support, the courage, and the determination we needed to carry on. To keep up the fight for what we know is right. To keep up the fight for the truth. As I look out at the many faces here today, I know God was listening. My prayers have been answered. Never again will I feel unwanted or unwelcome on Remembrance Day. Never again will I be or feel alone on Remembrance Day. Never again will I be made to feel ashamed on Remembrance Day. If you turn your back on one veteran, you turn your back on all veterans. Every year we hear the warning, lest we forget, but we have not heeded the warning. We remember our veterans and our fallen, but we forget why it is so important to remember them. We go through the traditional ceremony meant to honor our heroes, but we have forgotten the reason why they sacrificed so much. We are the true North, strong and free, lest we forget. By November 15th, 2021, I was no longer allowed to enter HMC ships or any Department of National Defense building. I was forced to work from home until they made a final decision of what to do with me. What was I supposed to do, play battleship? One officer put in charge of me stated in an email, "On the plus side, you're getting paid to stay home, almost like a paid vacation." Such is the attitude of people today. No pride in their work, no desire to accomplish anything, and no pursuit of meaning in their lives. This particular officer clearly did not think about what he was saying. This vacation I was on was anything but. What was I going to do on this vacation? Was I going to fly home to see my family? I haven't seen them in years. No, I couldn't without proof of a medical treatment. Was I going to take my wife and children out to dinner to save my wife the trouble of cooking another delicious home-cooked meal? No, I couldn't without proof of a medical treatment. I remember holding back the tears as my daughter asked if we could go see the latest movie at the theater. Of course, we couldn't without proof of a medical treatment. With all my spare time, I would have loved to hit the gym and stay fit to fight. But of course, I couldn't without proof of a medical treatment. Some vacation. I was told at the beginning of December that if I did not receive the medical treatment that was being ordered into the veins of every soldier, sailor, and airman, that I would be released by mid-January. We lived in military housing, and as such, the only home my children have ever known was being threatened to be taken from them. We had no place else to go, and now we were being told we had a little over a month until we were living on the street. Unless, of course, we succumbed to the pressure and partook in this medical treatment. Luckily, the Canadian Armed Forces wasn't able to actually release me until July, and we had already secured a place to live. My wife's grandmother was wonderful enough to take us in here in freedom-loving Alberta. I call this province the freedom capital of Canada. When I joined the armed forces, I believed it would be my job to help keep this nation free. I joined to stand on guard. I joined to fight the commies, not fight for them. Yes. On July 17th, 2022, the military officially released me under Item 5F. Once considered a dishonorable discharge, they changed the classification in recent years. Now it is considered an honorable discharge, although I will forever be labeled as unfit for future service. In a span of only a few months, the military took the shameful label 5F and turned it into a title I wear with pride. When people ask me what 5F stands for, I tell them it stands for 5 times the freedom. God heard my prayer that day on the 11th of November 2021. Groups like Veterans for Freedom, Take Back Alberta, and Fired Up for Freedom are all the proof I need that God answered my prayer. A lot of work has been done already, but so much more needs to be done. And like those who came before us, the stakes are high. But our fight today will not be fought with bombs or bullets, but with the tools put in place by those who helped shape this great nation. And as we face these challenges to our freedom, I am reminded of Lieutenant Colonel Stone's immortal words as they stared down the barrels of 20,000 enemy soldiers. No retreat, no surrender. May God Almighty bless Veterans for Freedom, Take Back Alberta, our freedom-loving truckers, and above all, our beloved veterans who made this country so great. Thank you.
And so now it's on you. What can you do? It's so important to have events like this where we make our voices heard, where David's voice is heard. And in a sense, your voice is heard by being here and supporting him. The recordings that are being taken today, you can share out those broadcasts. This is an important message today, and what you can do is share it out so that other people can hear it. And continue to attend events and make your voice heard in all those different ways, including writing to elected representatives and more. I went online and I looked up some poems that I thought would suit today, and this one jumped out at me. It's a short one, and it goes like this. For the many who fought and died to give me freedom of choice, I want a way to honor them, to thank them for my voice. I know that I'm only one voice, a noise coming from my throat. But if we join together, we can shout out with our vote. That poem's called Decide to Vote. Thank you all so much for being here today, through suffering through the cold, having a portion of the suffering and sacrifice that our soldiers went through as they gave of their lives for us. Encouraging you in going forward. Be there for one another. Love one another. Continue to support one another. Thank you again for being here today.